Today, 507 secondary schools across the country are closed, which represents 70% of the secondary schools in the country. 17,500 secondary school teachers are on strike, and there are 250,000 or so pupils who have been told to stay at home, and the inconvenience added to their families. That's all because you have sleptwalked us into a situation with the ASTI that they are on strike. Pupils are being denied an education, and they are the victims in what is another industrial relations shambles under the watch of this government. We have been saying for weeks to ask you to seize the initiative and prevent this strike by teachers. At the beginning of the week, the ASTI asked for reassurance from you about teachers receiving equality of treatment in their pay. This is a relatively reasonable request, one would imagine, and it would have reassured the ASTI that you had an interest in resolving the dispute so that schools could open today. We have called, my colleague Deputy Thomas Byrne has called consistently on Minister Bruton to actually confirm a pathway of how teachers will have equality of pay treatment now and in the future post-2018. This would not have to be outside the Lansdowne Road Agreement, and actually it may have created the conditions to avoid today's strike and, more importantly, to avoid what's coming. Because what's coming is even more serious and even more detrimental to this country. Next Monday week, after the mid-term break, the Joint Management Board has issued a warning that many schools may not be able to reopen. The country is facing complete and utter shutdown in the secondary education system unless a resolution is found. And instead of creating the conditions to resolve that and seeking to build trust to resolve and avoid that, the government have chosen a provocative and aggressive strategy to issue a circular that ASTI members will not be paid if they withdraw from supervision and substitution. This circular has actually inflamed an already serious situation. And to add confusion to your already chaotic situation, a spokesperson on behalf of the Minister is saying that pay will only be deducted from ASTI members where schools cannot open. Now, I understand there are 375 schools with staff rooms entirely comprised of ASTI members, another 150 school or junior union schools. So, Taoiseach, can you clarify which of these schools will open on Monday week, and how many students will be inconvenienced on Monday week because of your inability to come up with a contingency plan or to create the conditions where a resolution could be found?
Thank you,
and finally, Minister, as the Deputy Head of Government, is it not time for this government to commit to pay equality for newly qualified teachers? If you look at the serious situation, today's Irish Independent, depending on whether you were recruited in 2013, 2014 or 2015, you could be on 3 different pay scales. Is it not time to commit to proper equality?
Thank you very much.
Well, Deputy, like you and other members of this House, we would all be extremely concerned at even one day's interruption to the schooling of our young students. And of course, that interruption, we want to do absolutely everything to avoid, and indeed to avoid any further days of interruption. And that's what Minister Bruton and the Department have been working towards. There has been, as you know, a huge amount of discussion and talks between ASTI and the Department. It continued right up to yesterday. And the parties agree that contact will be made tomorrow with a view to arranging further talks after today's one-day strike. Let me just remind the House that there is a deal on offer to ASTI, which would see pay increases of 15% and 22% for new entrant teachers, with further benefits in terms of working conditions and a route to further possible improvements after that through the Public Pay Commission. The INTO, the TUI, have been able to accept this. And I would urge ASTI to re-engage, to look at the deal that is on the table, so that these interruptions to our young people's lives, as far as their schooling is concerned, can be avoided. In relation to a number of the other points that you make, I would say to you that equality is at the heart of everything we do, and we do want to create a new equality for all our people. We've just come from a situation of national bankruptcy, which the last government had to deal with. This government is dealing with the aftermath of that. And what we want to see and what we want to be is fair to everyone. We want to be fair to our teachers. We want to be fair to An Garda Síochána. We want to be fair to other public servants, to other public sector workers. We want to be fair to the taxpayer and to the community. And we have put forward a way of doing that, both in terms of the current negotiations that are underway, but also in relation to the unwinding of the emergency legislation that was brought in, that was so necessary. And so many people made sacrifices. And our Gardaí made sacrifices and our teachers made sacrifice. But in relation to the equality issue, I'd ask you to take a broad view of that as well, because, as I've said, equality and fairness is at the heart of everything this government is trying to do, particularly, I would say, in the education area, where Minister Bruton is particularly focused on creating better opportunities for people from disadvantaged areas in our school system and in higher education. And the recent budget contained measures to deliver on this. And let me go back to the new entrant teachers whom you raise. They will see pay rises, again I would say, of between 15% and 22%, between 4,600 and 6,700 for new entrant teachers. But let me conclude by saying that negotiations, I hope, will be ongoing tomorrow, and every effort will be made by this government to make sure that the outcome of those negotiations are successful.
Thank you very much. Deputy Calleary, you have a minute.
Thank you, Concorder. For all your talk of negotiations and efforts, the schools are closed today. There's 250,000 kids at home today, 17,500 teachers on strike. You say there's a deal on the table. The reason the deal won't be accepted is because the ASTI do not trust this government. In your own department, the GRA do not trust this government. The AGSI do not trust this government. And your attempt at creating trust is to issue a circular that has added further confusion to the chaos that is already within our education system. And you need to build trust with these unions to build a deal and build a resolution to resolving this situation. So next Monday week, the joint managerial board that controls most of the secondary schools in this country are saying that they may not be able to reopen. What guarantees can you give today that efforts are going to be made to get to a situation where schools will open on Monday week and not sleepwalking to where we are today? And how are you going to build that trust that is lacking? We support the Lansdowne Road Agreement, but the actions of your government are undermining it at every turn in terms of undermining the trust of public service unions. And you have to understand that.
Tánaiste, a minute remaining.
Let me put that in the broader context to you. You talk about trust. Of course trust is important, and the government has managed to negotiate successfully with 23 unions and 300,000 public sector workers who've already come in under the Lansdowne Road Agreement. It's managed to make agreements with INTO and TUI. And of course we want to continue to also have those negotiations successfully concluded with ASTI. In relation to your point about the circular, that's a matter of planning and needed to be done. That's the reality. It is normal industrial relations practice that where workers in industrial action withdraw from core elements of their work, resulting in the closure of the workplace, that those workers would not be paid for those days. There is no doubt but that supervision and substitution are a core part of teachers' work, and it's been clearly set out in circulars as well, Deputy. But let me repeat, our focus and the focus of the entire government has been on finding a pathway, which we've managed to do successfully, as I've outlined to you, with many other unions, and which we want to conclude also with the unions who are presently outside of Lansdowne. That's our goal, and all our efforts and determination and focus is on achieving that.
Thank you very much.